When an arrogant CEO brutally fires a seemingly homeless cleaning lady in front of all the employees, he has no idea he's about to face the most devastating moment of his life. Sarah, the woman publicly humiliated, slowly takes off her work gloves to beg for one last chance, revealing a faded tattoo on her wrist that will completely shatter Marcus Thompson's world. A simple word, written in the childish handwriting of an 8-year-old, will be enough to expose a truth that will forever change both the most powerful man in Chicago and the daughter he lost 15 years ago. Some wounds run too deep to heal easily. But can love overcome decades of pain, pride, and regret?
Hello. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. At the end, please rate the story. I will be happy to respond to you in the comments. Now, let's get to the story. The December sun cut mercilessly through the office windows on the 40th floor, casting long shadows over the Italian marble floor. Marcus Thompson adjusted the gold cufflinks on his Hermes shirt, the $5,000 Armani suit fabric falling perfectly over his broad shoulders. At 55, every line on his sculpted face told the story of decades building an empire, trampling anyone necessary along the way. "Come in." His voice sliced the air like a blade as the secretary hesitated at the mahogany door. Sarah Mitchell, a 40-year-old woman with 2 daughters to support, held a folder in trembling hands. Her nervousness was almost tangible, like a sour perfume lingering in the office's air conditioning. "Mr. Thompson, here are the reports you requested on the Human Resources Department." Her voice came out weak, almost a whisper. Marcus didn't even look up from the papers scattered on his rosewood desk. The sound of a Mont Blanc pen scratching against paper echoed in the tense silence. Chicago spread out below like a living map, small and insignificant from the height where he ruled absolutely. Fired. The word fell like a stone into still water. Pardon me, sir?" Now he raised his eyes, 2 fragments of blue ice piercing the woman's soul. "You heard me perfectly, Sarah. You're fired." Effective immediately. Tears began to form in her eyes. But Marcus had already returned his attention to the documents. Silence stretched like an open wound until she managed to speak again. "But, Mr. Thompson, I've worked here for 9 years. My daughters, their school tuition." "Not my problem." He waved a hand dismissively, like shooing a fly. "Security will escort you to your desk. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings." The sound of Sarah's heels receding down the marble hallway echoed like irregular heartbeat beats. Marcus allowed himself a cold smile. Thompson Industries had not reached the top by being lenient with mediocrity. Every decision, every cut, every calculated move served the greater purpose of maintaining his position at the top of Chicago's corporate food chain. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. The voice of his new temporary secretary sounded nervous through the speaker. "Mr. Thompson, Mr. Johnson from security is here. He says it's urgent about the night cleaning crew." Marcus frowned. For a moment, something like a shadow passed over his eyes, fleeting memory of voices and laughter that once filled empty spaces in his life. But the expression hardened again, like cooling steel. "Send him in." He leaned back in the leather chair, fingers drumming impatiently on the desk. Outside, Chicago continued its frantic dance, oblivious to the power games unfolding in the sky. But something in the urgent tone of the secretary sent an unfamiliar chill down his spine. Problems with the cleaning crew were too trivial to reach his desk unless they weren't tap leak. The cold water from the second-floor women's bathroom sink stung Sarah Johnson's skin as she rubbed her arms with the institutional liquid soap. 30 years of life had taught her that dignity could be maintained even when everything else fell apart around you. Her hands trembled not from the cold, but from exhaustion and the constant fear that had become her most faithful companion. The stained mirror reflected a woman she was still struggling to recognize. Her brown hair, once shiny and well-kept, now hung lifeless, washed with cheap shampoo in the bus station bathroom 3 days ago. The white blouse she had gotten from the donation center had a small tear near the shoulder, hand-stitched with thread that didn't quite match the fabric. Her black pants were faded at the folds, but still presentable, as long as no one looked too closely. Sarah dried her face with paper towels, each movement calculated to avoid wasting anything. In her worn backpack next to the sink, she carried all her earthly possessions: a change of clothes, basic hygiene products, some documents in a plastic bag, and the blue rubber gloves she had bought with her last $3 before landing this job. At least I have work, she murmured to herself, the words faintly echoing in the empty bathroom. A whole week of work. The gloves slid over her hands like a second skin. It was a ritual, she repeated religiously, no matter how tired she was, no matter how much her back ached from hours bent over cleaning floors. She always kept her hands protected and her work flawless. The cleaning cart creaked softly as she pushed it down the 23rd floor hallway. The executive offices were deathly silent after 10 p.m. Only the low hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of Chicago traffic below breaking the stillness. Sarah worked methodically, every movement efficient and careful. She vacuumed every corner, polished every surface, emptied every trash bin as if her life depended on it. And it did. "I can't lose this job," she whispered while cleaning an executive desk, the wood gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "I can't," but she knew the looks were there. During shift changes, when she crossed paths with late-leaving administrative staff, she felt the whispers following her steps. The barely concealed disgust in their expressions, the whispered comments about those kinds of people working in the building. As if poverty were contagious, as if she could taint the polished marble just by walking on it. Sarah bit her lower lip, focusing on the task at hand. Every window she cleaned sparkled, without a single streak. Every bathroom she sanitized was spotless. She worked as if every movement were a silent prayer or plea to be allowed to stay, hoping they could see beyond the worn clothes and desperate circumstances. The walkie-talkie on the cart belt crackled, making her jump. "Sarah Johnson, please report to the supervisor's office immediately." Frank Morrison's voice sounded more serious than usual. Sarah felt her stomach tighten into a painful knot. Her hands, still protected by the blue gloves, trembled as she put the cleaning supplies back on the cart. "Immediately, Sarah. It's urgent." The echo of her footsteps down the empty corridor sounded like a countdown. Every door she passed, every reflection in the dark windows, seemed to whisper the same terrible truth she was desperately trying to ignore. Something had gone wrong. Something very wrong. The elevator rose like a death sentence, each floor passing with a soft ding that echoed in Sarah's chest like hammer blows. Her gloved hands gripped the cleaning cart as Frank Morrison followed silently. The supervisor's face hardened into an expression she had never seen before. "Frank, did I do something wrong?" Her voice came out higher than she intended, fear dripping from every syllable. He didn't answer, just stared at the illuminated numbers above the door. 35, 36, 37. When the doors opened on the 40th floor, Sarah felt like she had stepped into another world. The marble gleamed under crystal lights, and the air smelled different, cleaner, more expensive. Her worn sneakers made a muffled sound against the polished floor as Frank led her down the main corridor. It was almost 10:30 p.m., but several employees were still at their stations, executives working late, assistants organizing documents for the next day. Everyone stopped to look as she passed, their conversations fading into curious whispers. "There." Frank pointed to the center of the main floor, where a group of leather chairs formed a semicircle near the enormous windows overlooking Chicago. "Wait there." Sarah positioned herself in the middle of the space, her eyes scanning the faces now turned toward her. 20, maybe 30 people, all dressed in clothes costing more than she earned in a month when she still had steady work. The silence stretched like a taut rope about to snap. The sound of firm footsteps echoed down the marble hallway. Marcus Thompson emerged from his office like a personalized storm, his $5,000 suit cutting through the air with military precision. His icy eyes locked onto Sarah with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "This," he said, his cutting voice carrying across the silent floor, "is the reason our company is being questioned by our most important clients." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. The words hit her like physical blows, each calculated to cause maximum damage. "Look at her," Marcus continued, pacing around Sarah like a predator studying its prey. "Is this the image we want associated with Thompson Industries? Filthy clothes, a deplorable appearance, the smell." He paused dramatically, wrinkling his nose. "You can smell it from here." Whispers started among the watching employees. Sarah caught fragments of conversations. "What a shame. How did this happen? Unacceptable." Each word a blade cutting her dignity to pieces. "Mr. Thompson," she managed to whisper, her voice breaking. "Please, I need this job. I work hard, I do everything right, I've never been late even once. You tarnish this company's image." His voice rose, echoing off the marble walls. "Our clients see you on security cameras, roaming the halls like what you are. A bum. A failure." Tears began to sting Sarah's eyes, but she blinked fiercely to hold them back. "Not here. Not in front of all of them. My clients pay millions for our services because they trust the quality of Thompson Industries," Marcus went on, his cruelty gaining momentum. "And then they see you, stumbling through the corridors in your second-hand clothes and pitiful appearance. What message does that send?" "I have nowhere else to go," Sarah burst out, the words pouring out in desperation. "Please, Mr. Thompson, I live on the street. This job is all I have. I can work harder, I can—" "You can leave!" Marcus motioned to the two security guards who appeared like shadows at his side. "Johnson and Martinez will escort you out. Immediately." "No!" Sarah took a step back, panic flooding her voice. "Please, I beg you. Just give me a chance. I can improve. I can—" The guards moved forward, but Sarah raised her gloved hands in a desperate gesture. "Wait!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the quiet floor. "Just listen to me for a moment, please." Her hands trembled violently as she started pulling off the blue rubber gloves, the material sticking to her sweaty skin. Despair shattered every last barrier of pride she had left. "I will beg if I have to," she whispered, fingers fumbling with the edge of the first glove. "I will do anything." The first blue glove fell onto the marble floor with a soft, almost inaudible sound, but it echoed through the tense silence like a distant thunder. Sarah pulled on the second glove with trembling fingers, her bare hands now exposed under the harsh office lights. Her palms told the story of a desperate week of workered calluses on the knuckles, small cuts from cleaning products, skin dried out from so much contact with disinfectants. But it was her right wrist that made the world stop. There, in faded blue ink but still legible, was a simple word tattooed: Daddy. The handwriting was awkward, childlike, as if a child had tried their best to write, each letter formed with the meticulous care of someone wanting to make something perfect for someone they loved. Marcus Thompson felt his knees weaken. The blood drained from his face as he stared at that small tattoo, and suddenly he was back in his Lake Forest home, 15 years ago. Emma was 8 years old and sitting on the leather sofa in the library, her little legs swinging as she focused intensely on her task. Her pink tongue peeked from the corner of her mouth, just like she always did when working on something important. "Daddy, stay still," she ordered, with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could have. The blue pen glided over his arm as she wrote with exaggerated care. "What are you doing, little one?" he asked, trying not to move while she worked. "I'm writing Daddy on your arm," she said without looking up. "That way, you'll always be with me, Daddy. Even when you go to work or travel, you'll always be here." She tapped her heart with her free little hand. Marcus chuckled softly. "But it'll wash off when I take a shower, Emma." Her blue eyes widened in panic. "It'll wash off?" "Yes, sweetheart, it's just a pen." Emma frowned, thinking furiously. Then her eyes lit up. "Then I'll get a real tattoo. When I grow up, I'll tattoo Daddy on my arm, and then it'll never come off. Never, 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 never. Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," she insisted, finishing the last letter with a dramatic flourish. "Done. Now you'll always be with me, Daddy. Forever and ever." The memory hit him like a punch to the stomach. Marcus staggered backward, his hand searching for support on the cold marble wall. The office started spinning around him, the faces of employees blurring into smudges of curiosity and confusion. "No," he whispered, the word coming out as a strangled groan. "It can't be." Sarah kept her hands extended, tears finally streaming freely down her cheeks. "Please, Mr. Thompson, I'll do anything. Clean bathrooms, work for free on weekends, anything." But Marcus couldn't hear her words. All he could see was that awkward tattoo, that childish handwriting he knew better than his own. That promise from an 8-year-old girl who wanted her dad to always be with her. Emma, the name escaped like a broken sigh. So low that only he could hear. His eyes scanned the woman's face in front of him, the blue eyes he'd seen every morning in the mirror for years. The shape of the nose his ex-wife always said Emma had inherited from him. The jawline unmistakably Thompson. How had he not recognized her? How had he looked at her for an entire week without seeing? Marcus grabbed the edge of the nearest desk, his legs shaking violently. The marble floor seemed to ripple beneath his feet, as 15 years of guilt, regret, and loss crashed over him like an avalanche. The homeless woman he had just publicly humiliated. The person he'd called a vagrant and a failure in front of 30 employees. She was his daughter. She was Emma. Emma! The scream tore through the air like lightning, echoing off the marble walls with a force that made everyone present recoil. Marcus lunged forward, staggering like a wounded man, his arms outstretched toward the woman standing in the middle of the office. Sarah stepped back instinctively, terror written all over her face. What? What is happening? Her voice was high-pitched, desperate. Why are you calling me by that name? Marcus dropped to his knees before her, his hands shaking violently as he tried to touch her face but didn't dare. Emma, my girl, my little Emma. It's me. It's me. The words came out broken between sobs that seemed to rip at his throat. You're crazy. Sarah tried to pull away, but he lightly grabbed her wrist, that wrist, with the tattoo that now burned in his vision like hot iron. Look at me, he begged, tears streaming freely down his face. Look me in the eyes, Emma. It's me. I'm your father. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She stopped backing away, her whole body trembling as her eyes searched the face of the man kneeling before her. The hair that had once been dark brown was now graying at the temples. The wrinkles she didn't remember. The expensive glasses replacing the simple ones he wore 15 years ago. But the eyes, those blue eyes. No, she whispered, shaking her head frantically. No, no, no. Emma, please. Marcus held her worn hands in his, ignoring the calluses, the cuts, the dirt. You promised you'd get a dad tattoo when you grew up. You said that way I'd always be with you. Do you remember? In the library, on the brown leather couch, you were 8 years old. Sarah's knees gave out. She collapsed onto the marble floor, an animal-like groan escaping her throat. Dad? The word came out as a broken sigh, loaded with 15 years of pain and abandonment. Yes, my little one, yes. Marcus wrapped her in his arms, pulling her close against his chest as they both shook uncontrollably. My Emma, my lost girl. I changed my name, she sobbed against his expensive suit, her tears staining the Italian silk. I changed it to Sarah when I ran away. I didn't want to be Emma Thompson anymore. Emma Thompson had a father who abandoned her. Around them, the office had turned into a gallery of shocked faces. Employees slowly approached, whispering among themselves in disbelief. Chicago's most ruthless CEO was on the floor, crying like a child in the arms of a woman they had seen humiliated minutes before. Forgive me, Marcus kept repeating like a desperate prayer, his hands gently brushing Sarah's dirty hair with a tenderness that brutally contrasted the cruelty from moments earlier. Forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. Sarah pulled away sharply, her red, swollen eyes fixed on his face. You looked for me? The question came out like a sharp accusation. In 15 years, did you ever look for me even once? Marcus closed his eyes, guilt crushing him like a mountain. I hired investigators. For years. I spent millions trying to find you. Lies. The words slipped out like poison. You were happy I was gone. You and your perfect new family. There was no perfect family, Marcus shouted, grabbing her shoulders. There was nothing. Your mother left me a year after you ran away. Said I was responsible for you leaving. She was right. Sarah pushed him violently, standing unsteadily. 15 years, she said, her voice breaking between anger and despair. 15 years sleeping on the streets, scavenging for food in the trash, being raped, beaten, humiliated. And you were here, in your marble palace. Emma, don't call me that. The scream echoed through the office. Emma died the day you chose your company over your daughter? Emma died when you said she wasn't important enough for you to fight for her. Marcus stood slowly, extending his hands as if approaching a wounded animal. I was young. I was stupid. I didn't know. You knew. Sarah stepped back, her back hitting the cold window. You always knew. You just didn't care enough. The sobs returned, shaking her fragile body as 15 years of pain poured out like a broken dam. Marcus stepped closer again, and this time she didn't resist when he pulled her into his arms. Father and daughter cried together in the middle of the silent office, their bodies trembling with the force of a reunion that had come too late and hurt too much. But even in his arms, Sarah kept her body's stiff part of her still too far away to reach. Trust, if any was left, was buried beneath layers of betrayal and abandonment that no tears could wash away completely. The silence in the office was broken only by the echo of ragged breaths. Sarah wiped her face with the back of her hand, leaving a dirty smudge on her cheek. Her eyes, still red, met Marcus's with an intensity that made him step back. "Do you want to know where I've been?" Her voice was rough, carrying a pain that had been brewing for 15 years. "Do you really want to know, Marcus?" The name hit him like a slap. Not Dad, not Daddy. Marcus. "I never stopped looking for you, Emma." Sarah. He corrected himself quickly, seeing how she recoiled at the old name. "After that night." "That night?" Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You remember that night?" "Because I remember every word, every second." September 2009. The house in Lake Forest was engulfed in a mournful quiet that had become the norm since Helen Thompson's funeral 6 months earlier. Emma sat on the stairs, listening to the yelling coming from the library, her father on the phone, as always, closing another deal while his world crumbled. "Dad?" She went down the wooden steps, each one echoing in the empty hallway. "Dad, I need to talk to you." Marcus was behind the desk, papers scattered everywhere, 3 phones ringing at once. He didn't even look up when she entered. "Not now, Emma. I'm closing the acquisition of Peterson Industries." "Dad, I got suspended from school today." That made him pause. Slowly, he raised his head, his tired, bloodshot eyes struggling to focus on her. "Suspended? Why?" I hit a boy." He said that. "He said Mom died because you killed her with grief." Marcus closed his eyes, rubbing his temple. "Emma, I don't have time for your teenage drama right now." "Drama?" Her voice rose an octave. "Dad, I'm thinking about not going to college. I want to stay here, with you. We both can. You will go to college." He stood up abruptly, slamming his hands on the desk. "I won't let you waste your life like your mother did." The words cut the air like a blade. Emma stepped back as if she'd been slapped. "Like Mom did?" She gave up everything. Gave up her career, her dreams, gave up on living. And in the end, she gave up on us. She was sick, Dad. She had depression. She had choices," Marcus shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. "And she chose to give up. Just like you're doing now with your bad grades, your attitude, your... My what?" Emma was crying now, tears streaming down her young face. "Say it, Dad. My what?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment, his eyes cold and distant. When he spoke, his voice was low, but each word hit like a stone. "You're a disappointment, Emma, just like your mother was in the end." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stood in the middle of the library, her body trembling as the words echoed in her mind. "I hate you," she whispered. "Emma, I hate you!" The scream tore through the air. "I hate you more than anything in this world." She ran to her room, threw some clothes into a backpack, and climbed out the window. At 18, Emma Thompson disappeared into a September night, leaving only a note. "Since I'm a disappointment, you won't have to be disappointed in me anymore." Sarah blinked, returning to the present. Marcus was pale, his hands trembling as he remembered. "You said I was a disappointment," she continued, her voice sharp. "That I was just like Mom, that we were both failures." "I was drunk," Marcus whispered. "I was broken by your mother's death. I didn't know what I was doing." "You knew exactly what you were doing." Sarah walked toward the window, looking down at the city below. "You were pushing me away, because it was easier than dealing with the pain." She took a deep breath, her hands clenching into fists. "Want to know where I went that night?" "I slept at a bus station downtown. A woman offered me a place to stay, but I had to. Had to do things." Her voice wavered. Things an 18-year-old girl shouldn't have to do. Marcus closed his eyes, guilt crushing him. 3 months later, I was addicted to meth. Being high felt easier than feeling the pain. I changed my name to Sarah Williams. I took the name from a headstone next to Mom's in the cemetery. Emma Thompson was dead. You said it yourself. Sarah turned to him, her eyes shining with tears not yet shed. It was 8 years on the streets, Marcus. 8 years of being raped by traffickers, beaten by police, humiliated by people like you. I got clean 4 years ago, but I still fight every day. I still wake up sometimes, screaming your name. Marcus was crying silently, his hand covering his face. I work 3 jobs to pay for a cheap motel room. I still wear thrift store clothes, still collect cans for food. But I survived, Marcus. I survived without you. The office was completely silent, the employees hanging on every word of the devastating story. And now you want what? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. For me to run into your arms and pretend the last 15 years didn't happen? For me to be your perfect little girl again? Marcus lifted his head, his eyes meeting hers. I want a chance to make it right, he whispered. I want to try to be the dad you deserved. Sarah stared at him for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was heavy with a sadness that felt endless. Maybe it's too late for that, Marcus. Maybe some mistakes are too big to forgive. Marcus sank into the leather chair behind his desk, running his hands through his gray hair with emotion Sarah recognized from the past. It was the same gesture he made when he was overwhelmed. She remembered seeing him do it when he was paying the family bills, taking her mother to the hospital, trying to manage everything alone. Do you think I didn't care? His voice was hoarse, filled with a pain he had kept buried for 15 years. Sarah, Emma, you have no idea what I did to find you. He stood up slowly and walked to the filing cabinet that took up an entire wall of the office. With trembling hands, he opened a specific drawer and pulled out a thick, yellowed folder. Look at this, he said, handing the documents to her. Look at all of this. Sarah took the papers hesitantly, her eyes widening as she began to read. Contracts with investigative agencies, payment receipts, private detective reports. Garrison and Associates, $50,000 a month since October 2009, she read aloud, her voice trembling. Blake Investigations, $75,000. Morrison Detective Agency, $30,000. 10 different agencies, Marcus said, his voice breaking. All at once, for 5 years, then I cut it down to 3 agencies for the next 5 years. Even now, I still have 2 working on your case. Sarah flipped through more documents, finding copies of newspaper ads. Her own high school graduation photo stared back at her, next to bold letters. Wanted Emma Thompson, $100,000, reward information leading to whereabouts. Chicago Tribune, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, USA Today. Marcus listed. Each word a painful confession. I ran those ads every week for 2 years, then every month for 3 more years. Sarah's hands shook as she found more evidence. Hotel receipts in dozens of cities, Detroit, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Milwaukee. Always the same note on the bills. Personal investigation searching for Emma Thompson. I traveled myself, Marcus continued, tears streaming freely down his face. Every time someone said they saw a girl who looked like you. Shelters, streets, rehab centers. I walked every dangerous street in Chicago, Detroit, all the neighboring cities. Sarah found a stack of stained photosol taken from afar of dark-haired girls on the streets, young women on corners, silhouettes that resembled her. Each photo had a note on the back. Not Emma, keep looking. My God, she whispered, her voice breaking. You really looked for me? Every day, Marcus confessed, sinking back into the chair. Every damn day for 15 years. I lost $1 million contracts because I canceled meetings when there was a lead. I spent over $3 million looking for you. Sarah held a document that made her stop breathing. It was a letter, written in Marcus's familiar handwriting, dated just 6 months earlier. To whom it may concern. My name is Marcus Thompson, CEO of Thompson Industries. 15 years ago, my daughter Emma disappeared after a terrible argument that was entirely my fault. I failed her in the worst way possible. If you are reading this, you are probably looking for clues about her. I am offering $500,000 for information leading to her safe return. She has likely changed her name. She may be hurt, scared, or angry, and she has every right to be. All I want is a chance to apologize and make sure she is safe. Please help me find my daughter." Sarah's tears fell on the paper, smudging the ink. "You raised the reward," she whispered. "To $500,000, yes, last month." Marcus leaned forward, his hands reaching toward her. "And do you know why?" "Because I turned 55 and realized I could die without ever getting the chance to ask for your forgiveness." Sarah looked up, meeting his desperate gaze. "Do you want to know why I became so ruthless in business?" Marcus continued, his voice low and broken. "Because it was the only way not to feel the pain. Every time I destroyed someone, every time I was ruthless, I could forget for a few minutes that I had destroyed the most important person in my life." He stood and walked to her, kneeling again on the marble floor. "I turned this place into an empire of steel and coldness because I couldn't bear being human. Being human meant feeling the pain of losing you. It meant admitting I was the monster who drove my own daughter away." Sarah held the letter to her chest, her body shaking with the force of the revelation. I always thought you were happy I was gone," she confessed, her voice a fragile whisper. "I thought it was easier for you without the troubled daughter who reminded you of Mom." "Never," Marcus said, with an intensity that made her start back. "It was never easier. Every day without you was a hell I deserved." Silence stretched between them, heavy with 15 years of misunderstanding and pain. Finally, Sarah spoke. Where do you want to take me?" Marcus blinked, surprised by the question. "Home," he said simply. "I want to take you home. Your home. I kept your room exactly as you left it. All your books, your pictures, everything, in case you came back." Sarah looked around the office, at the employees still silently watching, at the life she had built on the streets, at the broken man kneeling before her who still wore the face of the father she loved. "I'm not the same person anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not the Emma you knew." "Neither am I," Marcus replied. "But maybe we can find out who we are now, together." Sarah closed her eyes, holding the letter to her chest like an anchor. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll go with you." And for the first time in 15 years, Marcus Thompson truly smiled. The elevator at the Four Seasons Hotel Chicago rose silently to the 40th floor, each digital number marking Sarah's ascent from one world to a completely different one. She leaned against the mirrored wall, avoiding looking at her own reflection, while Marcus watched her every move with the intensity of someone afraid she might disappear again. "Penthouse?" she asked in a hoarse voice, still in shock. "Temporary," Marcus replied, his nervous hands adjusting his tie for the 10th time. "Until we decide what's best for you. I don't want to pressure you." The doors opened, revealing a marble corridor leading to a single door. Marcus swiped the keycard, and Sarah stepped into a suite larger than any place she'd lived in the past 15 years. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. Italian leather furniture decorated the living room, and there were 3 separate bedrooms, each with a private bathroom. "My God," she whispered, walking slowly through the room, touching surfaces as if they were made of fragile crystal. Marcus pulled out his cell phone, his fingers flying over the screen. "James, cancel all my meetings for the next 3 days. Yes, including Tokyo and London. No, it's non-negotiable." He paused, looking at Sarah. "And James, I need you to put together a team for me. Call Dr. Rebecca Martinez, the trauma psychologist who worked with veterans. Tell her it's top priority." Sarah turned to him, eyes wide. "Marcus, I can't afford to pay for." "You won't pay for anything," he said firmly, covering the phone. "Not ever again." He resumed the call. "And call Patricia Morrison from Nordstrom. I want her to come here with a full stylist clothes, shoes, everything, size." He looked at Sarah, questioning. "I don't know," she admitted, looking down. "It's been so long since I bought real clothes." "Bring varieties," Marcus said into the phone. "And call Dr. Williams, too. I want a full medical checkup. Here at the hotel, not at the hospital. She deserves privacy." Sarah walked to the window, watching the city stretch out below like a carpet of lights. Tears silently ran down her face. "Why?" she asked when he hung up. "Why are you doing all this?" Marcus approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. Because for 15 years, every night before I went to sleep, I planned exactly this. What I would do if you came back. How I would take care of you. How I would make up for every lost day. He pulled up a chair and sat down, taking a leather notebook out of his inner pocket. I have a plan, he said, opening the pages covered in his meticulous handwriting. If you allow me, Sarah turned, wiping her eyes. First, complete medical care, he began reading. Blood tests, nutrition, anything you need. Then therapy, not just occasional sessions, but a full trauma treatment program. He turned the page. Education. You were brilliant at school, Emma. Sarah. Sorry. He corrected himself quickly. We'll get your high school diploma first then if you want. College. Any college in the country. Marcus. Housing. He continued, his voice growing determined. The house in Lake Forest is still yours if you want it. Or we can find another place, anywhere you feel safe. An apartment here in the city, a house in another state, anything. Sarah sat in the chair across from him, absorbing every word. And work, eventually. When you're ready. Not at Thompson Industries. Unless you want to, I won't pressure you. But we'll figure out what you like to do, what makes you happy. Marcus's phone rang. Dr. Martinez? Yes, thank you for coming so quickly. Penthouse, 40th floor. He hung up and looked at Sarah. She's on her way. One of the best trauma psychologists in the country. She'll come here. You won't have to go anywhere until you're ready. How do you know she'll help me? Sarah asked, her voice small. Because she helped me, Marcus admitted. After you disappeared, I broke down. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Dr. Martinez saved me from myself. 30 minutes later, the suite was full of controlled activity. Dr. Martinez, an elegant Hispanic woman in her early 40s, was speaking softly to Sarah on the couch. Patricia Morrison and her team had transformed one of the bedrooms into an improvised boutique with clothes organized by size and color. Dr. Williams, Marcus's private physician, waited discreetly with his medical bag. Marcus watched everything from a distance, coordinating on the phone. Jennifer, reschedule Tokyo for next week. Yes, it'll cost $2 million in penalties. I don't care. He paused, watching Sarah laugh at something Dr. Martinez said, the first genuine laughter he'd heard from her. Some costs are worth it. 2 hours later, Sarah emerged from the bedroom wearing dark jeans that actually fit, a light blue cashmere sweater, and soft leather shoes. Her hair had been washed and cut by a hairstylist Patricia brought, and her skin had a healthy glow after a long bath with quality products. She approached the large mirror in the entry hall and stopped completely, her hand covering her mouth in shock. She started, then stopped, touching her own reflection in the glass. The woman staring back was unrecognizable compared to the person who had walked into Thompson Industries' office that morning. Without layers of dirt and tangled hair, without ripped clothes and a desperate look, she looked. You look like your mother, Marcus said softly, appearing behind her. Sarah touched her face in the mirror, tears running down her clean cheeks. I don't remember what it's like to look like this, she whispered. For so long, I was just a shadow. You were never just a shadow, Marcus said, his voice filled with emotion. You've always been my daughter, always the light of my life, even when I was too dumb to see it. Sarah turned to him, and for the first time since they reunited, she didn't pull away as he approached. Thank you, she said simply. Marcus hesitated, then reached out. When she didn't move back, he gently touched her face. Welcome back, my daughter, he whispered. Welcome home. The tempered glass in the office on the 22nd floor of Thompson Industries shook slightly with the March wind whipping through Chicago. Sarah Thompson, she had legally reclaimed the last name 3 months early, adjusted her dark gray blazer and checked her watch. 9 o'clock sharp. The weekly human resources meeting was about to start, but her mind was focused on something much more urgent. She walked down the hallway with determined steps, greeting employees who now knew her as the assistant director of the corporate wellness department. 6 months of intensive therapy, 3 balanced meals a day, regular exercise, and proper medical care had completely transformed her physical appearance. But the inner transformation had been even deeper. Good morning, Sarah. Jennifer Walsh, Marcus's executive assistant, said as she approached the anteroom. Your father is on a call with Tokyo, but said you could come in directly. Sarah hesitated for a moment at the phrase, your father. It still sounded strange, even after all these months. Some wounds healed slower than others. She pushed open the executive office door and found Marcus standing in front of a wall of monitors, gesturing as he spoke fluent Japanese with executives on the screen. His voice was cold, calculating the same tone she remembered from that terrible night 15 years ago. I don't care if they have families to feed, Marcus said in English, clearly irritated. Productivity dropped 12%. Either they improve the numbers or we find people who can, plain and simple. Sarah felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. Even after all these months of rebuilding, certain things about Marcus still deeply unsettled her. You have 48 hours to present a restructuring plan, Marcus continued. That means layoffs if necessary. Maximum of 20% of the workforce. Non-negotiable. He ended the video conference and turned around, his face immediately softening when he saw Sarah. Sweetheart, I didn't see you come in. How was your session with Dr. Martinez yesterday? But Sarah was not smiling. Her arms were crossed, and there was a familiar tension in her posture that Marcus had learned to recognize as a sign of a gathering storm. Marcus, I need to talk to you. The formal tone made him stop completely. She only called him by his first name when she was seriously upset. Of course. Sit here, he said, motioning toward the sofa area. What's going on? Sarah didn't move. 20% of the workforce? She asked, her voice controlled but tense. How many people are we talking about? Marcus blinked, clearly confused by the change of subject. It's 340 people, give or take. Sarah, why are you asking about 340 families? She cut him off. 340 people going home today, not knowing if they'll have a job next week. The weight of the realization hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Sarah, business is like that. Sometimes tough decisions. Stop. Her voice came out louder than she intended, echoing through the marble room. Stop with that excuse. I know exactly how tough decisions affect families. Marcus stepped forward slowly, hands outstretched in a conciliatory gesture. Sweetheart, I know you've been through a lot, but this is different. Different? Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Marcus, do you know how many people I help in the corporate program who are here because they were fired without warning? Do you know how many fathers lost their homes because executives like you decided that numbers on a spreadsheet mattered more than human lives? She walked over to the wall of monitors, where productivity graphs still glowed on the screen. 12% drop, she read aloud. Do you know why productivity fell? Because there's a global pandemic, Marcus. Because these people are working from home, caring for small children, sick elderly relatives. Because they're trying to survive in an economy that's collapsing. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but she went on. And do you know what they'll do when they're laid off? They'll search for jobs for months. They'll cut essential expenses. They'll move to smaller apartments, take their kids out of better schools, maybe lose health insurance. Sarah turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. And some of them, Marcus, some of them will end up on the streets, like I did. The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Marcus slowly sank into the chair behind the desk, the weight of her words hitting him full force. He began, then stopped. Do you know the difference between you and the man who threw me out 15 years ago? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. None. Absolutely none. The words hit Marcus like physical bullets. He bent forward, putting his head in his hands. Sarah, it's not the same thing. It's not? She screamed, all the emotions she had held back finally erupting. You're doing to 300 people what you did to me. Deciding they don't matter. That convenience is more important than compassion. Marcus raised his head, and Sarah saw tears in his eyes. I'm trying to protect the company, he said weakly. No, Sarah said, her voice softer but no less intense. You're trying to protect yourself. You're wearing the same emotional armor you wore with me. Because if you treat these people like numbers on a spreadsheet, you don't have to feel the pain of knowing you're destroying their lives. She stepped closer to the desk, placing her hands on the glass surface. Marcus, for 6 months, you've told me you've changed, that you learned from your mistakes. But with the first really hard decision, you go right back to who you used to be. Marcus looked up at her, the weight of truth visible in every line of his face. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice breaking. "How do I protect the company without? You find another way," Sarah said simply. "You use all those millions you spent looking for me over 15 years. All that business creativity that made you a billionaire, and you find a solution that doesn't destroy lives." Marcus remained silent for long minutes, staring at screens full of numbers and graphs. "You're right," he said finally, his voice almost a whisper. Sarah blinked, surprised by the quick admission. "I've been using cruelty as a shield for so long I forgot there are other options." He stood slowly, walking to the window overlooking the city. "I forgot that real leadership means finding solutions that protect everyone, not just shareholders." He turned to her. "Cancel the video call with Tokyo, and call an emergency meeting with all the vice presidents for this afternoon." Sarah watched him carefully. "What are you going to do?" Marcus squared his shoulders, and for the first time in months, Sarah saw a familiar determination in his eyes, but different from the corporate coldness. It was the determination of the man who had spent millions searching for her. "I'm going to announce that Thompson Industries is implementing a new corporate policy," he said. "No layoffs will be made without first exploring every possible alternative. We'll create a stabilization fund for employees, retraining programs, flexible hours for those dealing with personal hardships." He paused, looking directly into her eyes. "And I'll announce that my daughter will be promoted to Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility, with the authority to implement programs that ensure we never treat employees like disposable numbers again." Sarah felt tears come again, but this time they were tears of relief. "Are you sure?" she asked. Marcus walked over to her, extending his hand. "I'm sure that 15 years ago I lost my daughter because I chose numbers over people. I will not make that mistake again." Sarah looked at the outstretched hand for a long moment, then took it. "Then let's get to work," she said. And for the first time since they reunited, Marcus saw in her smile not just forgiveness, but genuine pride. The Chicago sky was heavy with low clouds that October morning, casting Graceland Cemetery in shades of gray and gold. Red and yellow maple leaves blanketed the stone paths like a natural carpet, swirling in small whirlwinds whenever the autumn wind lifted them into silent dances. Marcus Thompson adjusted his dark wool coat and checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. He had arrived early at the cemetery, as he always did when nervous, and now he walked slowly down the familiar paths, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, Helena's favorite. "Dad?" Sarah's voice sounded softly behind him. He turned around, still getting used to the nickname she had started using again a few months ago. Sarah approached, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee and wearing a navy blue coat that made her eyes stand out, eyes that now shone with a confidence he had come to cherish every day. "I thought you might want some coffee," she said, offering him one of the cups. "It's from the cafe Mom liked on Lincoln Avenue." Marcus took the coffee, with hands trembling slightly, not from the cold, but from the emotion that always rose when they visited Helena together. "Thank you, sweetheart." He took a sip, savoring both the warmth of the drink and the intimacy of the moment. "How was the video conference with Seattle this morning?" Sarah smiled, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "That's why I wanted to talk to you here. Mom has always been part of our most important plans, hasn't she?" They walked together along the main alley, leaves whispering beneath their feet, until they reached Helena's grave. The black granite headstone still looked almost new, even after all these years, with words engraved in elegant letters. Helena Rose Thompson, beloved wife and devoted mother. Marcus arranged the lilies in the bronze vase, his hands careful and reverent. "Hi, Mom," Sarah said softly, kneeling beside the grave. "I brought Dad with me. We have some news." Marcus knelt next to his daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She always knew you would come back," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "In her last days, when the doctors said there was no hope, she made me promise I'd never stop looking for you." Sarah turned to him surprised. "She said that?" "She said, 'Marcus, our daughter will need us one day, and when that day comes, you'll be there for her, no matter what happened.'" He wiped a tear that slid down his cheek. "It took me 15 years to understand what she meant." Sarah took Marcus's hand, intertwining their fingers. "She was right. And now we have a chance to do something she would be proud of. She opened the leather folder she'd brought, revealing architectural plans, financial reports, and photographs. The pilot program in Chicago was a success beyond all expectations, she began, spreading the documents on the dry grass. In 12 months, we helped 623 people off the streets. Not temporarily, Dad. Permanently. Marcus picked up one of the photos' families, smiling in front of modest but decent homes. Children playing in safe yards. The average cost per family was $42,000. Sarah continued. That includes temporary housing, job training, healthcare, education for the kids, and psychological support for 2 years. 42,000, Marcus repeated, calculating in his head. To change an entire life. To change many lives, Sarah corrected. Because when you save the parents, you save the children too. And when you save the kids, you break the cycle, Marcus finished, understanding shining in his eyes. Sarah nodded, picking up another document. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and Denver have already approved similar programs based on our model. But Dad, this is just the beginning. Her voice grew stronger, full of the passion he had learned to recognize. With resources from Thompson Industries, we can expand to 50 cities over the next 5 years. Marcus studied the numbers, his business mind calculating the implications. We're talking about what? $2 billion? $2.4 billion over 5 years, Sarah confirmed. But Dad, think about the return. Tens of thousands of people reintegrated into society, paying taxes, contributing to the economy, raising kids who will never know hunger or homelessness. Marcus looked at Helena's headstone as if seeking her approval. Your mother always said money only has value if it's used to make a difference, he murmured. And now we have the chance to prove she was right, Sarah said, gently touching the name carved in stone. Marcus was silent for long minutes, watching the clouds slowly move across the cemetery. A red cardinal landed on top of the headstone, sang a sweet melody, then flew to a nearby tree. You know, he finally said. Yesterday, my lawyer brought me the finalized documents for my will. Sarah looked at him curiously. I left instructions for 80% of the Thompson fortune to go to the Helena Thompson Foundation for families in transition. He smiled, seeing the shock on her face. With you as lifetime CEO, of course. Dad, Sarah whispered, tears starting to fall. The other 20% is yours, to make sure you never need anything, he continued. But I know you'll use it all to help others. That's who you are, sweetheart. That's who you've always been. Sarah threw herself into his arms, sobbing against his chest. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for letting me make a difference. Marcus held her tight, breathing in the scent of her lavender shampoo, memorizing the feeling of having his daughter safe in his arms. Thank you for teaching me that making a difference is the only thing that really matters. They stayed like that for several minutes. Father and daughter embraced beside the grave of the woman who had bound them even in death. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah wiped her eyes and smiled. Mom would be proud of us, wouldn't she? She would, Marcus agreed. But I think she's even more proud knowing we finally learned to be a real family. Sarah took Marcus's hand, turning it palm up. With her index finger, she began tracing letters on the skin of his wrist, each stroke slow and deliberate. D-A-D, she spelled aloud, just like she had so many times as a child. But this time, when she finished, she didn't let go of his hand. Instead, she looked straight into his eyes. This time it's a promise, she said, her voice steady and clear. A promise that no matter what happens, no matter how many years go by, we will never be apart again. We are family, Dad, forever. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then, with his free hand, he touched her face, just as he had on the first night she came home. Sarah, he said, his voice broken but firm. There are words I should have said 15 years ago. Words I should have said that terrible night when I made the biggest mistake of my life. He took a deep breath, gathering courage for the words he'd rehearsed 1,000 times in his dreams. I love you, daughter. I love you more than my own life, more than any company, money, or success. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being cowardly, for choosing pride over love, for letting you go when I should have held you and never let you go again. Sarah closed her eyes, tears falling freely now. "I love you too, Dad," she whispered. "And I forgive you. We both made mistakes. We both paid the price. But now we're here, and that's what matters." The autumn wind blew stronger, lifting leaves around Helena's grave in a swirling dance, as if she were blessing the moment. Marcus pulled Sarah into another embrace, this one even tighter than before. "Your mother is smiling," he murmured against her hair. "I know," Sarah replied, looking at the sky where the sun was finally breaking through the clouds. "I can feel it." And there, in the cemetery where Helena Thompson rested in peace, father and daughter finally found not only forgiveness, but the promise of a future built on love, redemption, and the determination to turn their pain into hope for countless other families. The red cardinal returned, landing again on the headstone, and this time it stayed, singing a long, sweet melody, as if celebrating right alongside them.
If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. These other stories will also move you. Click to keep watching.